The legal bombshells awaiting Pedro Sánchez this spring. It's going to be a long one for him. Let's get started. Hello everyone and welcome to a new edition of Medidas Cautelares with Miguel Ángel Pérez. And today we're going to reveal all the legal bombshells that await the Prime Minister, Pedro Sánchez, this spring. I'm telling you, this spring is going to feel extremely long for him. It's going to feel extremely long for him, and that's why we're going to use this video to analyze everything that's coming for Pedro Sánchez. Yes, absolutely. Then, after everything is over, the Prime Minister at La Moncloa is still in charge. Of course, the opposition must be doing something wrong, because honestly, I think they're going to have it easier than ever. And we're going to start with the first judicial bombshells that Pedro Sánchez will face when he returns, right after Holy Week. The first one is the trial for the Koldo case, alright? In this trial, the one who was his right-hand man in the Socialist Party and in the government, the former Minister of Transport, José Luis Ábalos, will also be in the dock, as well as the former advisor to the former Minister of Transport, Koldo Garcia. And the third defendant is the businessman Víctor de Aldama. Pay attention to this trial because besides the testimony from Víctor de Aldama, which is expected to be a real bombshell, in that trial, the Minister of Territorial Policy, Ángel Víctor Torres, and the President of the Congress of Deputies, Francina Armengol, also have to testify. And many of those testimonies are also expected. Of course, just the fact that a trial is being held, the first trial for corruption under Sanchismo, because José Luis Ábalos was everything to Pedro Sánchez, is undoubtedly going to be a bombshell for Pedro Sánchez. But this won't be the end of the long list of bombshells that Pedro Sánchez is going to receive. Second bombshell, UCO report. I already talked a few days ago about Francina Armengol, a report that's practically finished now. There's not much left, but possibly the investigators are going to wait for Francina Armengol to testify as a witness precisely in this trial in the case. Koldo, in order to learn more about it, to be able to bring it to light. And I remind you that it will be about the actions of Francina Armengol, the purchase and sale of medical supplies during the COVID-19 pandemic when she was president of the Balearic Islands. That's the second bombshell, but there's also a third bombshell coming, which is the asset report on Santos Cerdán. Just like with Francina Armengol, it is also expected that this report, which is practically finished, will not be made public until the end of the Koldo case trial, meaning that we will have to wait until May. And it's a report that, as I was telling you, it seems the UCO has discovered something big about Santos Cerdán's assets and will know all the details when it comes to light. But of course it's going to be another bombshell because Santos Cerdán was none other than Pedro Sánchez's right-hand man in the Socialist Party as the PSOE's organization secretary. So there's no doubt about it, we keep getting bombshells. Why? Because obviously the Begoña Gómez case is also already in its final stretch and we're just waiting, well, at any moment now, for Begoña Gómez to be sent to trial. We'll see if it's for those 5 crimes she's been charged with. But that will mean that, well, Begoña Gómez, the wife, the spouse of the Prime Minister, will possibly be sent to trial this spring and we'll see when the trial actually takes place. But it looks like being sent to trial is just about to happen. So another bombshell that's going to hit Pedro Sánchez. But let's keep going. Why? Because another bomb is about to drop. Trial against his brother, against David Sánchez, in the provincial court of Badajoz after being handed a job through connections in the provincial council. And this, of course, is also going to be another bombshell, or rather, this will be the actual trial of the Prime Minister's brother. Look at how spring is coming, and you might say, but is there still more? Well, there's still the Aldama dossier to come. The Aldama dossier with those oil quotas worth $250 million. You already know that it's being investigated by the judge of Central Investigative Court number 2 of the National Court, Ismael Moreno. It's a secret investigation, and obviously, as you already know, and since you all follow this Medidas Cautelares channel with Miguel Ángel Pérez, this case is going to directly implicate mainly 2 people. who won't be the only ones. One, Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez, and two, former Prime Minister José Luis Rodríguez Zapatero. Why? Because, as I already told you, those oil quotas worth $250 million were channeled through Zapatero and Venezuelan frontmen into bank accounts in Russia to finance nothing more and nothing less than the Socialist International, which made Pedro Sánchez president of the Socialist International, and also to finance the Socialist Party itself. So, pay attention to this investigation being carried out by the UCO, the Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office, and the judge of the National Court, Ismael Moreno. Is there still more? Of course, another bombshell, the Plus Ultra case. The Plus Ultra case, which we've also talked about in recent days, well, on medidas cautelares, is another bomb that's about to go off. Why? Because right now it's still under seal, the investigation is ongoing, and now it's being handled by the judge of the National Court, José Luis Calama. Previously, Madrid Investigating Court number 15 was investigating, but the case was later moved to the National Court because it had already reached a point where the judge at Plaza Castilla was completely overwhelmed. Because it must be said that in this case, related to the airline Plus Ultra, a money laundering operation is being investigated, taking advantage of the government's bailout of 53 million euros. Funds allegedly coming from Venezuela, from Nicolás Maduro's Venezuela, when Maduro was in charge, were allegedly laundered using third countries like Spain, France, Belgium, Switzerland, and so on. So this investigation is still under seal, but it could be lifted at any moment, and of course its main protagonist will be José Luis Rodríguez Zapatero. But not the only one, because Aldama has already revealed in several media outlets in several interviews that out of those 53 million euros that were initially supposed to go to the rescue of the airline Plus Ultra, 10 million euros supposedly, according to Aldama, were in the form of a commission for Zapatero and allegedly also for the Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez. So pay attention to the Plus Ultra case because it's also another bombshell that's going to end up exploding. And it's not the only one. There's still another investigation under seal that's also going to be another bombshell that we have to highlight in this video. The so-called Sepi plot, the so-called Operation Leire, which involves the PSOE's fixer, Leire 10. Also, of course, the former president of Sepi itself, Vicente Fernández. And also the former partner of Santos Cerdán in the company Servina Bar, who is the businessman Anxón Alonso. This investigation, which we have also discussed in depth on this channel of Medidas Cautelares with Miguel Ángel Pérez, from the information I have received, is going to make a big impact because it is taking a certain direction, it is expanding. There are going to be many more people involved in this corruption scheme, and when the case is unsealed, we will find out. And, well, we could keep talking about bombshells, but to me these are the most important ones, and they will probably all or most of them go off this spring. So Pedro Sánchez is going to have a very complicated spring on the legal front. And that's it for this edition of Medidas Cautelares with Miguel Ángel Pérez. I hope you enjoyed the video. Honestly, it helps us all to be clear about the main cases we have on the table. As I said, we've talked about a few, but they're not the only ones. There are many more, but this gives you a bit of a map of what we have on the table regarding this corruption tied to Sánchez. If you enjoyed the video, leave your comments and opinions. I always read them carefully and with pleasure. And you also know that you can become members with the chosen membership for less than 3 euros a month or the supreme membership for less than 7 euros a month. Or you can also make financial contributions whenever you can and whatever you can at 627556370, 627556370. The most important thing, as I always tell you, is that this information reaches everyone because information is power. See you soon.